Hi guys, I'm putting out a second video today. A couple of people had sent me emails and they were curious about where I thought the chest was and about the solve that I talked about before. Because the I did a video about it, but it was like I think it was like almost 2 hours long, and a lot of people don't want to watch it. So I'm kind of just messing around here, and I just wanted to kind of give you a perspective on the solve, and I'm gonna kind of do it from a straightforward manner. I'm not really going to get into the poem. I'm not going to get into the solution itself, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what we were talking about. And I wanted to say again that a lot of this was based on the research done by Sam Smith. And yes, it has to do with try the wheel. That's what the solution was based on. Um, Sam Smith, as you know, was my partner. And then I had another partner that lives in Wyoming. And he was kind of the boots on the ground guy. And I also want to mention before I get into this that um, about 2 days after the chest was announced as found, I got a PayPal donation by somebody that claimed to be the finder. And let's just call him Bob for now. I don't really want to give out his name, but I know him. I spoke to him on the phone a couple of times, so I know him from them conversations. And as it turns out, he wasn't really the finder. So I just want to make that clear. It wasn't Jack Stoof that I was talking to. It was another guy named Bob. Bob has told us that he based his solve around my and Sam Smith's work. In other words, he started at the wheel, but he ended up at Porcupine Falls. And it was very interesting what happened that day because Forrest Fenn knew that I was heading out on the 6th of June, either the week before the 6th or the week after. And June 6th was my 39th wedding anniversary. And I told Forrest that I CC'd him a message that I sent to my partner that lives in Wyoming. And I basically detailed where we were going to go. And that was back in May. I sent that to Forrest. So as far as I knew, my partner was either going to go the week before or the week after the 6th. So when the 6th came and Forrest Fenn announced that it was found, I got nervous because I hadn't heard from my partner. And I thought maybe my partner was trying to surprise me. And I tried to call him on the 6th. I couldn't get a hold of him. And I couldn't get a hold of him on the 7th. So on the 8th, I finally got a hold of him. And unfortunately, he informed me that he didn't go yet to my places. Okay. So that was kind of a letdown because I'm like, okay, so I know that I'm not the one who solved it. So my partner said, if you want, since Forrest didn't put out a picture yet, maybe he's giving somebody time to go get it. I'll go anyway. And I said, sure. So he went. He sent me back pictures and stuff, and of course we didn't find the chest. This was on June 8th because the chest was already found. We didn't, but he went there anyway to look, and basically he checked the spots that I indicated, with one exception. He didn't go to Five Springs because the thought of Five Springs hadn't occurred to me yet. But what happened was, while my partner was boots on the ground on June 8th, I received a PayPal donation from that guy. He said, I'm the finder, and I used your solve. And I replied back to him basically saying, well, okay, so I'm not sure what you're looking for here. Why would you tell me this? And he said, basically, I'm telling you because you deserve credit because you and Sam had done most of the work. But it took me roughly 2 years to figure out the ending that you didn't figure out. And then he told me, he goes, well, you're a smart guy. He goes, I'm sure you can figure out, so I'll give you a clue. He told me to look at the bench that's up at the area between the parking lot and the wheel. He just said, look at the bench. And that's the bench that I discussed in the other video. It's got 3 names on it. It's got Charles Brady, it's got Francis Brown, and it's got Hamo Wise. Okay. Now, those 3 guys were basically the fathers of the coalition for the Medicine Wheel. They're the one that saved the Medicine Wheel, and their bench is up at Five Springs Overlook. So he told me to look at that. Of course, I looked at it and I'm like, okay. So he's basically, I'm assuming he's telling me that that's his home of Brown because Richard Brown is there, and it's a home because those are the fathers of that area, protected area, and that area is considered home to many Indian tribes. And incidentally, Indians are brown. Redskin is a white man's term, but they're brown skin. And the Crow and other Indians basically consider Medicine Mountain their home. That's why the wheel is there. They didn't make the wheel, but they consider it home. So anyway, I assumed he's talking about that, and then I go back to the wheel and I look at my solve, and if you look straight down one of the lines I have, it goes directly to the bench. So I'm like, okay, the bench is the home of Brown, and if you sit in the wheel where the Indians will sit when they're on their quest, the whole sky, the southern sky, is the celestial sea. And if you use your imagination, it looks like the waters are coming down from Pisces and Orion, and they're pouring the water down into the southern fish's mouth, which is Fomalhaut. So basically, that would mean that when you're sitting at F and you're looking towards D, you're looking at Five Springs Basin, would be where warm water's halt. And I'm like, it hadn't occurred to me. Strange, right? So you're coming down. So I already had the line, and I already once considered Five Springs, because Five Springs Waterfalls is exactly 242 degrees from the center of the Medicine Wheel. And it's also the 22nd spoke when counting clockwise, which is where the E Cairn is. And when you're standing at E and facing east, you're facing the sunrise on the solstice. If you put your back to the sun and walk southwest, you're from the sunrise. You walk away from the sunrise, you're walking 242 degrees. So that was one of the places we had on our list. We just didn't consider it. He didn't go there, and that's where I assumed that this guy Robert went. So Bob tells me, Bob tells me, and this was very interesting because it was the 8th of June, and he said, I'm going to Wyoming to wrap things up, and I'm going on June 16th. Now, needless to say, June 16th, he did go. He called me when he was in Wyoming and he was at Level, and he told me that I'm tired. I'm not going to be able to make it out today on the 16th. I'll probably go out tomorrow. It looks like it's going to rain, right? So we get off the phone, and then about 7 or 8 hours later, Forrest puts out the pictures on June 16th, and I'm like, oh man. So this guy Bob actually went there and got it. Well, I talked to Bob on the phone. He didn't call me that day, 16th. I finally got a hold of him on, I think, the 18th. And he told me that no, he didn't find it, but he checked his spot. I asked him, can you also check Five Springs? And he said, okay, I'll do that. And basically, he got off the phone with me. And then I contacted him on that Saturday, and he didn't get a chance to go to Five Springs, but he did check his spot. So he wasn't the finder. So meanwhile, somebody sends me a PDF file from a female that posted on Facebook that she had a sob, and her sob also originated at the wheel. And she also went 242 degrees, but instead of stopping at the falls, she ended up all the way south of Cody, really far away from the wheel. It's a cool sob. In her PDF file, she credits Sam and me, I think, for because she used Sam's solution for the beginning, and her sob ended up there. So I contacted her on Facebook, and she told me she didn't get a chance to go. She was going to go in July. That's what she told Forrest last winter. So over the winter, Forrest Fenn basically knew that that female was going to her sob that was based around the wheel. He knew that that guy, Robert, was going for his saw base around the wheel. And then he knew that I was teamed up with Sam and that this was my last year and we were going to try the wheel. So basically, we had a toe to toe race, known back in May, which I think is why he did or I thought that's why Forrest did the toe to toe contest on Dow's, because it was a toe to toe race. And there was 3 different teams all heading to solves that originated at the wheel. Now, I don't know if Jack's solve has anything to do with this, but I'm going to put this out there anyway because people requested it. And I'm not even going to debate whether or not this is Jack's or whatever. This is what we did. I don't know what Jack did. And like I said, I'm not going to get into solve. I'm just going to go over this really quickly and just I'm going to give you what some people have requested from me. They said, I want to see a solve that's based only on the poem and it doesn't use try the wheel or any of that stuff. In other words, it's based on actual physical locations. So let's forget for the moment that I said that where warm waters halt is 5 Springs. Let's do a completely different solve. And we're going to base this all around Bighorn. So I'm going to assume that my warm waters halt, in this case, is going to be Wedding of the Waters. Why Wedding of the Waters? Because it's unique in that the river changes names. It enters this canyon, the Wind River Canyon, as the Wind River, and midstream it changes to the Bighorn River. So the headwater of the Bighorn River is right on the border of the Wind River Reservation, as you can see here. Okay. Most of the time when rivers are renamed, they're renamed at a confluence. This is unique in that there's no confluence here. It's just renamed. So out of nowhere comes the Bighorn River. So we'll theme everything around the Bighorn River. And let's assume where warm water salt is Wedding of the Waters. So beginning that wedding where the Bighorn River is formed and take it in the canyon down. Not far. In other words, the canyon's near, but it's not near enough to walk. So to me, that would be a hint that says not the Wind River Canyon, which is right here, but take it in the canyon downstream. In other words, the Bighorn Canyon. So we're basically going to take the Bighorn River downstream, and we're going to go to the Bighorn Canyon is right here. Okay. It starts right here, and this is the border of Montana, and this red line is the Crow Indian Reservation. So we basically went from the border of one Indian reservation, the Wind River Res, up to the southern border of the Crow Res. But he doesn't want us to go with the water into the canyon down. Instead, he says put in below the Homa Brown. So what I'm going to do, I'm considering the Homa Brown is this mountain, and we're below it in elevation, and we're putting in to get up there. So where I would put in is the same place that the Indians would put in that were coming down from the reservation. They would come down, and then they would ford the Bighorn River, and they would come up here, this trail back in the day. And one thing I want to point out here too about the put in, and I'm not going to get into the history and stuff, but here's the ML Ranch, which is famous. And here's a town called Kane, which was alive and kicking back in Forrest Day when he was a kid. It was a big town. It had a bank, everything there, right? And it was well established. It's a ghost town now because they built a dam up in Montana and this whole area flooded. So Kane is not used. But there's a bridge when you leave Lovell. And before this bridge was here, they used to have the Kane Ferry. And the ferry used to take cattle across the Bighorn River. So this was a place that they would cross the river. So literally, the ferry would put in here. This is a famous put in. So we're putting in to this road. So we're getting, with this solve here. And here, incidentally, here's where 5 Springs Creek meets the Bighorn River down here. So that ferry went away when the bridge was built. Before that ferry existed, the ranchers used to have to come all the way down to Graybull to cross the Bighorn River. Now they were able to do it up here. So all of the ranchers up here to the north, and ML Ranch was one of the largest ranches in the entire Bighorn Basin. And again, I don't want to get into the history of that. If you want to, you can go ahead and read it. Otherwise, this video will take forever. So basically, my put in was on this road. But when you get to, and incidentally, here's a canyon. This is Rainbow Canyon here. So that kind of ties into one of the book where Forrest said the end of my rainbow. So the end of that canyon, you'll see this is where the old road was. It was called the Dayton Kane Road. And right now it's called Old US Highway 14A. That's this white line up here. And if you look at that, there's a sign, and I'll let you read that. But basically, it's a pretty dangerous road. This describes the history of the road when it was paved. So this was the only way up until the 60s when they built the current road, which is where this yellow line goes. Okay, this is the way you would currently get up to the Medicine Wheel. You would take that road, and then you would make a left over here. Not over there. You would take that road all the way up here, and you would make a left here, and then go park, go up to the wheel. This yellow is the current road. The old road is this white thing here, and you can see all the bends and 90-degree curves. The pavement ends right here, and up here it's all rock. So basically, that road used to go all the way up here and all the way around here, and it would come out down here and meet right here. This is the old highway. Okay, it's all gone now because people don't use it anymore. They use the new one. But that in the 30s and 40s and 50s, that was the only way that you would get up here. And my understanding is for his friend's family camped at Porcupine Falls. I imagine they also went to the wheel. And if they did, the only way they went up there in the 30s and 40s is this road. So anyway, we get up to Five Springs Campground here. And as you can see, there's two loops. This is the lower camp, and this is the upper camp. So when you pull into the campground, you'll notice that you're going into this really tight area where there's only one way in. Okay, you can't come down here. It's very, very, very steep. All right, and you also obviously can't come down here. Now, Five Springs Basin is up here. There's Five Springs, and then it makes the headwaters of the creek. The creek comes down here. It goes into the canyon and over the falls and down, and then it comes past Rainbow Canyon, and it goes through two reservoirs and it ends in the Bighorn River. So this is where I think the chest was. Actually, you can't really. Actually, up here is where I think it was. Up in here, that's roughly 7,200 feet in elevation. Where the wheel itself is up at almost 10,000 feet. There's no way in from here. You would fall to your death down any of these cliffs. So let me show you a couple of cool pictures here. I'll show you them on the website first. And by the way, here's the Cairn town history where they talk about the ferry, and what remains there is just a graveyard, and they go over it all. It's an historical site. Same thing with the ML Ranch that I showed you on here. It was a big ranch, and one of the ranchers there is the one who actually started Lovell. And speaking of the town of Lovell, you talk about Apollo 13. Well, look at the astronaut named Lovell. And Lovell, the astronaut, is the first astronaut to see the dark side of the moon. And Lovell is also the astronaut that when he was at the dark side of the moon in Apollo 8, Apollo 8 was supposed to land on the moon. They didn't. They had a malfunction. And guess what the malfunction was? It was their oxygen system. You know how Forrest talks about the airplane where his light was blinking, the beacon that showed that he had oxygen? Well, that's what went wrong on the Apollo 13. So they flew to the dark side of the moon, but they didn't land because they had a malfunction with the oxygen system. So they flew back. So that commander level was the commander of Apollo 13, and he was the man who put his thumb over the Earth and talked about how he covered up millions of people with his thumb. So could that have been a hint to Lovell? The Apollo 13, all of the astronaut stuff is a hint to Lovell, which is the closest town to the Bighorn Wheel, which of course, try the wheel. You guys all know all of that stuff. And like I said, I don't really want to discuss the solve, but one thing I will show you here, and I'm going to let you guys do what you want to take a look at it. But this picture here doesn't discuss everything. It doesn't get into any details of the poem, but it sort of gives you a flow, an idea of the flow of the logic that we used. And as I said, I don't get into details here. I do have details written down elsewhere. These letters that were chosen, because as you can see, each line, there's multiple choices. Like for an A, we could have took A from heavy, A from water. We took the one from loads. That was not a random choice. The poem actually tells you which ones to choose. And it's part in the not far but too far to walk part, but also just logic in the poem. If he says from there, and then he says, it is no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. So we're always picking it from the word that we are told to pick it from. So anyway, I don't want to get into the solve, but basically that's it. And as I said again, the first stanza is pretty much the only reason why it's there is to tell you what it is. Okay. And if you look at the word where is only in two places: secret where and where. So in other words, there is no where warm waters halt. Warm waters halt is in the poem on your first pass. The poem is a duality. So if you're trying to marry warm waters halt, it's too vague. You have to find out which one is he talking about. And that's what the try to wheel, where the try to wheel stuff comes in. Because eventually warm waters halt, when you're making your second pass, when your boot's on the ground, warm waters halt is going to be a physical place. It's not just going to be in the poem. But before you can find the physical places, you have to break the poem down. Okay. And as I said, I don't really want to get into that much more, but I did want to show it to you. So that place, anyway, you talk about Fenny, a place being Fenny. When you arrive at the parking area, okay, and you take the trail is only a quarter of a mile, and I'll show you a picture of it hiking here. And these numbers, for some reason, are wrong. This is like 7,200 feet. I don't know where they get these numbers, but they're not right. On OpenStreetMap, they're wrong. But anyway, here's the upper camp. Here's the trail. The elevation change of this trail is anybody can handle it. This is only a quarter of a mile. Anybody can handle the trail. As you look over here, it only gains 217 feet in elevation over. This trail is a quarter mile in one direction, quarter mile long. So it's only going to be a 200-foot elevation gain over a quarter mile. Nothing at all. A family can easily handle that. So anyway, if we look at the website, it's kind of cool. But when you follow the trail from the parking lot, the very first thing you're going to see, and I want to see if I could, is going to be this picture. This is the trail, but this spot is significant. And if you'll see, the trail curves to the right, and then it takes you back into Five Springs Canyon, which is a box canyon. It's almost like a cirque in there, meaning once you go in there, there's no way out. The only way in and out is right here. You have to go this way. And on the way up, there's a bench that's similar to bench up at the Overlook, where this is what you would see if you sat on that bench. Very, very cool. Now, when you go up, this is what it looks like in the woods. You're all under a canopy of trees, and it's got this rippling creek going in there. The trail ends at this. Basically, this is the bottom fall. Let's call it the lower fall. Okay. And there's that bench I just showed you again. And you can either go left or you go right. We got to go right. That's where we want to go to get into that area. Now, what I want to show you is this is the bottom falls. If you look at the base of the bottom falls up in here, the creek is flat again and it takes you into an opening. And you can't really see it at the base of this, but this is the upper fall. This fall is like 100 feet or more. There is no way you're going to get out of here. This is a circular area. Okay. I believe the treasure chest was right in here. And this area right here is exactly 214 degrees from the wheel. Okay. So let me show you. I want to show you a couple pictures in detail here. This is kind of stuff that I didn't get into before. So yeah, here's the circle that I made up in there. Okay. I showed you the Dayton Kane road. Yeah, this is what it looks like in the woods. And I guess this would be the fall or the winter or springtime. I don't know. But this water is all going, and you're completely under the trees here, and you're only at just under 7,000 feet. You're not up at 10,000 feet where the wheel is. You're down here. It's nice. If you were a sheep eater Indian and you wanted to come down during the winter, this is the perfect place to do it because you're in a cirque almost. You're completely surrounded in a safe area. There's animal life here. There's water here. It doesn't freeze. And well, I suppose even if it did freeze, you could break through it. But you've got animal life here. You've got the coverage of the forest. You've got the closed-in canyon. So this again is the base fall. This is the lower fall, and this is kind of a tight zoom, unfortunately. So you can't see what's over here because that'll become important. I don't know how tall this is. I'm going to say maybe 20 feet, 15 feet. But you can see it flattens out up here and then it goes back. Okay. Most people will stop right here because this is where the trail ends. There is no trail leading up here. And most families don't go up there. Most people don't. But if you go up there, approximately 200 feet, I want to try to zoom into that sign. Read that sign. Five Springs Falls Trail. Not maintained beyond this point. Travel at your own risk. Caution. Falling rocks. Well, right there on this sign, which is always going to be there, because even if it broke, they're going to put another one there. But there's your heavy loads, the falling rocks, and your water high is the falls. So from there, it's no place for me. Can't is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. So again, I don't want to get into the solve, but that's the sign. I thought was very cool. So let's see. What is this? Another picture of the sign. Yeah, so this is another shot of that lower falls. And then if you look, it goes back into a circular area. And this is the big fall. There's no way to get up that fall. But anyway, if you're adventurous enough, if you on the left-hand side, and again, it's out of frame, you can't see it. But it looks like it's not that difficult to climb up here to get up into this area and walk back along the stream towards these falls and specifically under these trees against the canyon wall, because that's where I think the chest was, up on the left there. Or it could be on the right if you have to ford the stream. I don't know. I think it's on the left. And here's another one looking up that same falls. And again, this is zoomed out a little bit, but you can see that this goes back. And behind this tree is that larger falls. Okay. So again, I'm saying the chest is up in this area. It's not down here. This is as far as you would go. I would imagine that some searcher sent Forrest a picture and they were up here and they never managed to go back there and look. And they were within 200 feet of the treasure. Okay. And he says people were within 500. Well, those people would be anybody that hiked to the point where they're looking at this lower fall. They didn't go up, they just went to the end of the trail. This is where most families will go. They're not going to adventure up here. Um, so let me see if you can see up in there. Yeah, that's that other. This is the larger falls, and it's on the left here. This brush leads up into the trees, and there's a canyon wall, like right here. And I believe that the treasure was at the base of that wall, shoved in a nook, kind of like this nook over here. I don't think the chest was over here near the waterfall, but it was on the other side. And literally, you see all these nooks here. These are the falling rocks they're talking about. All this granite could fall and crush you. Um, and there's other pictures up in there. Yeah, this is even a more. But up in here, you see what I'm talking about? this that lower falls that you're looking at is downstream of this. So when you come up, there's no trail here. But up underneath this overhang, it's like a notch, kind of similar to the way the Mummy Cave was. And like I said, I can imagine that if you were a sheep eater Indian, you would probably take shelter in here during the winter. Because, I mean, look at this place. You don't have to guard from people coming in from this side because there's no way they can make it down. And you've got coverage of the trees, the protection of the walls. No rocks are going to hit you because they're kind of in an alcove. And this is a place that Forrest Fenn could have died and nobody would have found him if he would have crawled up under there. Okay. So that's where I believe, or it could be farther back, somewhere along this wall, or on the right hand side of the wall, if you had to ford the creek up here, which is certainly doable just by looking at this. Probably any time of the year too, because I'm going to show you that you know I'll show you in another image. So anyway, I think there's something. Oh no, maybe it was the other image. Yeah, I mean, look at these rocks. This is that upper fall, so you can see over here like rock slides are like all over the place. So I don't know if he had to go up this high or down here a little bit, but somewhere along that wall, and I believe there's a petroglyph. And I believe the petroglyph is a medicine man eye, which stands for wisdom. It's sort of shaped like a diamond with a circle in it. That's the symbol for wisdom that a medicine man would use. And of course, this is all themed around the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, right? So anyway, that's this is down in the woods. That's not the falls. This is the lower falls. But again, you can't see it because it's a tight frame. But on the left here, it's easy to get up these rocks, to get up to that plateau I'm talking about there, or into that area that I'm calling a cirque. I don't know if that's the proper terminology or not. But so yeah, I mean, this is cool. And it's funny because when you go to this site here, and look at this, you go down and you could where is it? It's not what I want to see. Oh, here. Okay. So click on that to find the Five Springs Falls Trail and come down here and just read some of these reviews. It's totally cool. Totally hidden gem. Make your way to the campground and you'll find a trail. It's a short hike up to these small falls. This portion of the trip is good enough for a family. If you don't have small kids and are part mountain goat, go all the way up and take a shower. The upper falls require scrambling up the creek. Risk and effort are worth the view. But I believe that that's what you have to do. You have to go beyond the lower falls and go right up there. And anyway, if you come in, all the pictures that I got were basically from why am I all these pictures right here. Okay. And then where I got these maps, these are recordings of the people that hiked up there. And as you can see, this is this, like I'm calling it a circle. There's no way in or out other than right here. Okay. You, there's no other way to do it. And this is the upper campground. This is the parking lot. And it's almost, like I said, it's only a 200-foot gain. And it's right around 7,200 feet, which some of you, that should make your bells go off in your head when I say 7,200, between 7,200 and 7,600 feet. So basically, that's it. That's really all I wanted to show you. I think that it's definitely Fenny. It's definitely a place that I think that it would be. It's definitely still where I think it was. And I don't know that. I don't know, And about Jack, and let's just talk about that for a little bit. As I said in my other video and a couple of the replies, if you trust Fenn, I think that what Jack did is he at least proved that he was with Forrest. So whether or not we think there's a controversy, if you think that Jack really didn't find it or solve it, that would mean that you also don't believe Forrest Fenn, because Forrest Fenn was with this guy. The only thing that I want to say that makes me a little leery about all of this is forget about the location of where Jack got the chest, because who knows? Anybody can obtain the location. Forrest could have gave that out to friends of his. Okay. To me, proving that you are the quote unquote finder, and there's nothing against Jack, but he can easily prove it by giving out the solution. Because the solution, when people see it, hopefully it's convincing enough that you would agree with him that, okay, that's the solution. I don't agree with Jack where he says that Forrest did not want the place known. Because let's look at this, okay? Just common sense. If Forrest loved this place so much he didn't want anybody there, why on earth would he create a treasure hunt and get 350,000 people to try to find it? That's number one. Number two, Forrest Fenn, and I'm going to paraphrase here, many times he had said, when you find out what the solution is, you're going to say, my God, why didn't I think of that? When you find out where the chest was, you're going to laugh and say, did Forrest Fenn really do that? I think that Forrest fully intended the person to give away a solution. And I also think he intended people to see the place. I mean, what are people going to do? They're going to go there and burn the woods down? I don't think so. Are they going to break the rock? The only other reason why you wouldn't want to see the place is if it involved some legality. For example, if it was in Yellowstone. I don't believe that's true. But if it was, maybe that's why Jack wouldn't want to give the information out. But other than that, I don't see any reason really to give it out. And I think that would give closure to a lot of people, including myself. I mean, I didn't find it. And I'm going to tell you right now, the other thing is, the other option is that maybe Jack used somebody else's solution. And then he kind of picked up where they left off and he solved it. Now, so what? I mean, I wouldn't be embarrassed about that. Whenever I put out a video, I know full well that somebody might look at my video and see what I'm talking about, and they would go, wow, I see what Troy missed, and they would go and beat me to the chest. I accepted that, otherwise I wouldn't have put it out there. And the same thing is true with everybody that posted their solves in the forums. If somebody else used your information that you made public and they beat you to it, that's just life. I mean, I'm willing to accept it, and you should be too, because you have no legal grounds for anything. I mean, a judge would laugh in your face and he would say, okay, you think you solved it. Why didn't you go get it? I mean, you have absolutely no standing. Now, I'm not talking about Barbara. Barbara was claiming that somebody hacked her computer. That's another story. And I don't believe it because Barbara was not even in the right state. But anyway, that would be a nefarious way of getting the solution or hacking Forrest's computer. That would be another bad way. But using public information and continuing where somebody else left off, there's nothing wrong with that. And I would say to Jack, if that's the case, then so what? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still your chest, you know. And he knows where my solve is. I didn't give him my solve, but I told him where I thought the chest was. And even if he told me I used your solve, I used part of your solve, or it was close to where you're saying, or whatever, he didn't say any of that to me. But if he did, more power to him. I mean, I wouldn't have tried to sue him. I wouldn't do anything like that, you know. So the only point I want to make about this is if you don't believe that Jack is the finder, that's fine. But what you're also saying is, I think Forrest Fenn's lying, which is fine too. But then if that's the case, the whole chase may have been a hoax. We don't know. So at some point, we took Forrest Fenn's word that it wasn't a hoax. So why would we not take his word that Scott is the finder? And notice that I'm being very specific here. I'm saying finder. I didn't say that Jack solved the poem. I don't know that. He didn't give out a solution. Until he does, he can't really back up his claim that he solved the poem, right? But we can assume that it's likely he did because how else would he get to the spot? Unless one of the controversies that's currently going around is true. And I'm not really ready to believe any of that stuff yet. I don't know. I don't know. All I do know is that there's a lot of crazy idiots in the chase. And I'm not really sympathizing with Jack so much, but I could see where he might be nervous as to what can happen. He did give out his name. I wish he would give out the solve. I'm happy that I was at least in the right state. And as far as the theories that it wasn't in Wyoming, don't even tell me that because I think you're crazy. It was in Wyoming. There is nobody that can convince me otherwise. And the other thing is, no, that GPS solve is just total bullshit. And furthermore, even if you remove the GPS part and start talking about Isla Lake, that's nothing new and earth shattering. Do you realize? I mean, go back and search for Isla Lake and Forrest Fenn and Continental Divide. There's probably 1,000 friggin' solves out there to people that look there. This is nothing new. And bronze sniffing dog, yeah, you know, I really like what Eric Johnson said. He's got a bullshit sniffing dog. You know, I have the same thing, bullshit sniffing dogs, and they led me right to the GPS solve. That's a joke. I don't even want to hear about it. Go post on somebody else's video about the GPS solve. It's wrong. I'm never going to believe it. There's nothing unique about it. Period. I mean, at this point, I am almost 100% convinced that the treasure chest was within a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles of the Bighorn Medicine Wheel. I believe that it was at Five Springs Falls, and I just showed you where. I have a detailed solve, and I may or may not release it. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't have the chest, and technically, I'm kind of holding off because I want to see what happens with Jack. I don't want to put it out there. I mean, let's say that my solve is right, and again, I can't prove it. Let's say it's right. I don't want to kind of put Jack in a position where now now he can't come out with the solve because he would go, oh my God, if I come out with it, then it matches, Sam Smith or Troy, and I would look like a complete idiot. I don't want to put that guy in that position. And again, like I said, I wouldn't sue him. I'm not going to, whatever. I mean, I didn't find it, period. It doesn't matter whether somebody used information I put out there back in 2016 or not. I put it out there fully knowing that something like that could happen. And the only reason why I did it is I tried to build a team. And it didn't work. I mean, I ended up with a team, but it didn't work out. because we didn't find it. I think I had a good team, but whatever. I'm happy to know that there were two other teams that were all based off the wheel, and it's interesting that we all end up in different places. Porcupine Falls, Five Springs Falls, and then I think her name is Susan or Alias or whatever. But she ended up on a farm somewhere south of Cody. But again, I talked to her, and she wasn't the finder. And this other guy, Robert or Bob, that I talked to, obviously he wasn't a finder because we know Jack was the finder. But I would just like to know one day or not whether or not we were close. So anyway, this is it. There's not really much more else to say about it, and hopefully you like this video. If you do, please subscribe, click spam that like button, and have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Peace.